Welcome to the Sharpe Way show. Yes, it is 7 p.m. on the East Coast. So what do you have to do? Look at my mug. That's kind of how it works every weekend, Monday through Friday. Happy to have you here. And you know what I'm going to ask you to do. So just go do it. Like, comment, share. You know I want you to click that like button. Why don't I see like being clicked? Do it now if you would. Comment, share. It does matter. We need people to know that we're out here doing this. 100% we do. And if you really love me, and I hope you do, then you'll want to support the show. Heading over to patreon.com/sharpeway. Throw me some money. If those Trump bucks are coming your way, throw me $100 because you got it. If you don't, no worries. $10 is good. $25 is good. No problem. But if you can't do that because you're tight, I get it. Some people are. You can still help me out. Head over to theadvocates.org. Take the human respect test and share that with others. The link is right here in the description. Click on that link, take that test, and share it. It's free. It makes my sponsors happy, and therefore me and you happy. So that's the free thing. You can do that too, either way. But no matter what, you can always just like, comment, and share. I am very lucky today. Today, I am so lucky. I have with me someone who is an activist, an author, and a podcaster. She does it all and has like 9 jobs, or I don't know, some insane amount of jobs she has. The person who's gonna talk to us about the future, Hannah Cox. How are you?
Larry, it's so good to be here. I've been a fan for some time, so great to join you tonight.
I'm sure you're lying, but still, I love it anyway. It's fine. So yes, all good.
I don't lie.
Oh, I like that. Even better. For those of you who want more on Hannah, please head over to her Twitter account at Hannah Cox 7, and that's Hannah with an H at the end, and the H stands for extra honest because she doesn't lie. That's why she has 2 H's, because she's extra honest. Absolutely.
Me and Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely, yes. So the thing I wanna bring up here is you are a self-identified conservative, but you're not afraid to look over on the other side and to talk about BLM without yelling and calling them evil and bad, and to talk about race, and to talk about a death penalty, and to talk about gun control. This is a thing that I like a lot, but you've got to get some, that people have got to give you a little bit of ribbing about this, don't they? You don't fall into that conservatives only say this thing.
Yeah, it's not easy being somebody who doesn't fit neatly into a camp these days. But I think increasingly that's more and more Americans. And I think my viewpoint actually represents where a lot more people are. You know, you've really loud people on both extremes. And they're very vocal and they're active. But that's not the average American. I think most people feel like they're not being truly represented by either of the major 2 parties. A lot of people are not familiar with the Libertarian Party. And if they are, they not always are very involved with it. And so you kind of have this like squishy middle of people that I think are up for grabs. And I sort of place myself in that. You know, I've really felt politically homeless in recent years. I'm somebody whose underlying philosophy is based on concrete principles. You know, what really matters to me is true free market principles. When I say I want a limited government, boy, do I mean it. And I don't think a lot of people do. And I believe in individual liberty for all. That's something that I'm very convicted about. And so even as a young kid, you know, growing up in a very Republican Christian household, I was always pro-gay rights. I was always very concerned with the treatment of Black people in this country and what I saw as injustice. And so for me, you know, it's more consistent based on my principles and ideology to address some of these things, because you can't say you believe in limited government or individual liberty or even free market principles and not care about the things happening in our criminal justice system and not care about the disproportionate treatment of some people groups in our society. These are things that we should be leaning into and really looking to provide solutions to if we want to lead. And I want to be a part of an ideology and camp that leads, right? I don't want to just be the opposition.
But I feel like most people, when they think about what you just said, they actually want limited government except for the things they like, right? Yeah. So if I like wars, then I like limited government except for the wars. Let's keep those going. Or except for the war on drugs, or except for insert pet project that I care about. I see that often, but at the same time, whenever people think about solutions to something, it's always a government solution, right? It's always the solution that costs more money, more time, more energy, and doesn't actually work much, right? I think we want policies that encourage community, right? That actually encourages community versus just encouraging government.
That's right. And so often the problems that we're facing were created by the government in the first place. That's actually the point of my podcast based is going back and looking at, okay, we can all agree that the student loan bubble is a huge problem that we need to fix and we need to figure out how to address it. But having government come in and wipe out the loans and start paying for everybody's higher education is not going to solve that. That's actually what created this problem in the first place. And that kind of thinking is applicable to a total huge range of policies that we face in this country. And so as conservatives, as libertarians, if we want to really come in and be effective, we have to come up with other solutions and show why free market, limited government ideas are better than the failed big government policies that created the mess in the first place.
Well, you've got some fans already. Friar Steve says 9 jobs. Nice. I just don't know if she has 9 jobs. I was teasing her. She has a lot of jobs.
It's like 3 or 4.
9. Yeah, it's like 3 or 4. It feels like 9 when I see her online. It feels like 9, but okay, it's 3 or 4. All right, fine.
It feels like 9 to me most days too.
There we go. Exactly. Jonathan says, I should ask you what you think about big tech censorship and the threats lobbed at Google, Facebook, etc. This is per the Cato Institute. And he says, you need to make more trips to Charleston, South Carolina, by the way.
I'd agree with that.
Yes.
I love Charleston. My sister's in Charleston, actually. But I think the tech censorship issue is a big pressing problem. I think it's something that we've actually sort of known was coming for some time. This isn't new. I think it's been amping up and revving up. I'm disappointed that a lot of conservatives have not better prepared for this. I am a free market absolutist. I don't think these companies have to host us on their websites. And I say that as somebody who does a lot of advocacy on social media. But if they decide to kick me off tomorrow, it's their business. They paid to build it. They have every right to decide who's on there and what content they want on there. And I respect that. But I also think that, boy, do we need to be building alternatives and to be, really investing in the future and in spaces where there is a wide range of thought and where that is protected. And, if you look at the amount of money spent on the past election or even post-election on people who thought that the election was stolen or on the Georgia Senate races, hundreds of millions of dollars that were raised, that could have been better diverted to building some better platforms for conservatives and libertarians. And I'd like to see that kind of work come about with the business leaders and thinkers.
Let me walk down that road, because I am worried more than anything after this election about reconciliation, right? I've brought this up more than once. That's my concern. And I hear what you're saying on a theoretical level completely. I'm talking about the reality, right? And what I mean by that is Google, for most people who don't know this, the largest search engine in America is Google. And the second largest search engine is YouTube, owned by Google. When you have that kind of oligarchic, monopolistic, power, isn't there an issue where at one point they are by default monopolies in some way, shape, or form? And while we want free market principles, absolutely, doesn't the monopoly by default break the free market principle? Now, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm happy to be wrong, but this is, where I'm going. And not just that. Yes, do they have a right to do so? Yeah. Should they? Should we be so happy about them doing it? I mean, I can say you have a right to say, you don't want to have someone on their platform, but I probably should say, yeah, you're right, but you shouldn't do it. You have a right if you want to go to somebody and yell at them and say that right in their face, they're ugly. You could do that. That's not a crime to walk up to somebody and go, wow, you're ugly. But man, that's a jerk move. And you really shouldn't do it. I mean, am I off here?
You're not off here at all. I've sold all my stock in the companies. I'm not paying them for any ads. I can't say I've gotten off them. I think honestly, if I were being consistent, probably I would say we should all get off them and walk away, because that's really the free market response that they need. They need a quick, swift kick to recognize that they're going to lose business. But I think that is starting to happen. Hundreds of millions of people have left over the past couple of weeks. We've seen their stocks continue to plummet. But what you brought up before that, I think, is the discussion we should be having, which is the monopoly discussion, the corporate welfare discussion about the money that these companies got. I've been opposed to corporate welfare carte blanche for many, many, many years. And that's something that I think many on the right have not always consistently held to. I don't think that any company should be getting corporate welfare, be getting tax dollars. I think that's antithetical to a free market ideology as well. And we know that many of these companies did get that money, and it did help them to create monopolies and to buy up competition. And so I think that's the discussion I'd rather have than whether or not, we should be forcing them to host speech, which is where I felt the conversation going on the right, especially with many of the people who were targeting Section 230. I don't like those efforts, but I do think that there is a better discussion to be had around the anti-competitive state of the market and whether or not conservatives even have the ability to build competitors and to try to create their own kind of other companies to come in and offer different services. So well, I would agree with you on that path.
I remember when a lot of conservatives were running over to Parler, right? And I was on Parler too because I want to keep talking to conservatives.
Right.
But what was funny is two sides. The first one was there were so many people who were actually happy about that. And there were people going, yeah, get rid of the conservatives off Facebook, blah, blah, blah. They were happy about that. And they actually teased me. They said, so Larry, you're going to go over to Parler and talk to the conservatives? I was like, yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Because I want to keep talking to them. So yes, I'm going to go over there and talk to, yes, of course I am. And they looked at it like almost an attack. Like now you're one of them. Is many people thought that. And so they went over to Parler. And I think some conservatives were also happy to go to Parler. Like, yeah, now we got our own thing. And this brings me to the next piece, which is fractured media, right? One of the worries I have is if we do what many people are talking about, right? What you just mentioned, that they're building a competitor. I love building a competitor. I do. My worry is, do we turn into a CNN and Fox News competitors? Right? Where there's really nothing in between, right? And if you believe in the right, you probably watch Fox. If you believe in the left, you probably watch CNN, right? That's kind of where we go. Do we risk that on, left-leaning Facebook and right-leaning Parler, and we stop having the communication that's required for reconciliation?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And I would say to some degree, we're already there on Facebook and Twitter. Their algorithms are working to separate us, to feed you content that you like that actually feeds into your echo chamber. This is a huge problem in our society. And it's even bigger than just the media, which I also agree is a big problem. But as a whole, we in society, we do not know people who are different than us. We don't have any relationship with people who have different political backgrounds, religious backgrounds, racial backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. We are so siloed in our society. And it's really, really detrimental because when you don't know people, it makes it a whole lot easier to write them off, to fearmonger around them, to stereotype, to scapegoat them, to make straw men of them and their arguments, to not be fazed when they are harmed by certain government policies. I think that is a really dire situation that we're in. And the only way to really fix that is first and foremost in our day-to-day personal lives. I work really hard to try to know people who are different than me. And by working in criminal justice reform, I get to do that a little bit more than the average person. I work with a lot of left-wing people. I work with a lot of right-wing people, tons of libertarians, of course. And what I found is that often when I go into these spaces, they're very kind of hesitant around me at first. They don't know what to think. My title's with a conservative organization. And I remember I was working with one of the state heads of the ACLU on a bill to repeal the death penalty last year. And I'd spent the day with her lobbying and going around. And we went to a happy hour reception that evening. And she said, I texted the whole group before they got here and said, she's actually nice. And I was like,
some of those conservatives are actually real people. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, I'm nice. But that's the world we live in. And I think that, the real problem that we have to face is ourselves. I said this the other day online, but the most unpopular opinion is also the truest. And that is that the biggest problem with media is the consumer. It's us, that we're getting what we ask for. People want to hear their own views back to them. They don't want to be challenged. They want to be in these echo chambers. They want 24/7 news. They want, quick, kind of buzzy entertainment type style information versus really wanting hard, heavy hitting journalism. And so the market's feeding us what we want. And it's been really terrible because we aren't listening to one another. We aren't even hearing the other side's argument really. And I think it's really creating even more of a tribalistic nature in our country.
I agree. It's funny. Someone was asking me about you being on the show, and someone said she's with Newsmax, which was for them a trigger word, right? That was really a trigger word. Like, oh, she's related to them. Clearly, she's one of those, right? I mean, that was what you said about now. All of a sudden, you've become the thing they thought you were. Oh, you're that. I get that too. People, libertarian. Oh, one of them, right? I get that same feeling. It's one of the reasons why my show is not called The Libertarian Show, right? It's just called The Sharpe Way. And people go, what's that guy? I don't know. He sure is handsome. So maybe I should watch him. So, I mean, I think I'm with you on that. But let me move to the next step, which is if we begin to put ourselves into these silos, it comes to a point where we can't believe that the other even exists, right? It's you look back in 2016, when Hillary lost the election, Democrats couldn't believe it. Like they couldn't imagine it, right? How could that be a thing? It's impossible. They couldn't imagine it. Why? They were all in their own echo chambers, and in their echo chambers, everybody loved Hillary. So of course, everybody hated Trump. Of course, the whole world feels that way. And then I think the same thing happened this year with a lot of Trump supporters. In their echo chamber, of course, Trump will be a landslide. I remember about 2 months prior to the election, people were asking me to really predict the election, and I wouldn't do it. And I said, I can't. I know it'll be close, but I can't predict it because I don't know what data to trust. Are the polls accurate? Are they not accurate? What news station is talking about? Who's friends? The only thing I knew is that Trump was not going to win New York because I crossed over New York State. I cover New York State every year. I do all 62 counties every year. So I meet New Yorkers every single year across the entire state. So I was sure he wouldn't win New York, but I didn't know if he'd win the election. I mean, when the last election without New York, I thought he might win this one without New York. I didn't know. So because I didn't believe or didn't know who to believe, but I found people, many of them, who were 100% sure it was going to be a blowout both ways. Like, it depends who I talk to. Talk to a Democrat? Oh, my God. It's going to be 48 states Biden, 2 Trump, right? Like that. And then talk to a Trump guy? Oh, 49 states Trump, right? One Biden. And it really made me believe that, oh, my God, we're being siloed.
Yeah, boy, is that such a good point. And it's so true. Even today, I've seen sort of my two sides of my media. My left-wing friends are ecstatic and everything's going to be so great. And then my right-wing friends are saying, I still can't believe he won. There was nobody at his rallies. I don't know anybody that voted for him. How can this be true? And it is hard to know. I was in the same boat as you. I had no idea what was going to happen. And my mood on what I thought might happen went back and forth like every week because there'd be some big news story.
Right.
And I had no idea what to anticipate. I was in New York City when COVID hit. I came back to South Carolina last May. So I was kind of in a blue state and a red state. And it was totally different worlds. And I think to a large extent, we don't recognize our own bias. I was listening to a really great podcast episode on the show Hidden Brain about this, how we can recognize bias in other people. We can't always recognize our own bias or be aware of it. And that's a really problematic thing that we need to at least be aware of, that we can't recognize our own bias because it's there and it clouds our judgment. And it makes it really hard for us to see the other side or even to accept that it's there. And I think as we move forward, to get to a point of reconciliation, which I'm with you. I think it's paramount. We've got to take the temperature down in this country. We've got to move away from the hatred of one another and really start to try to find ways to come together. We don't have to agree. I work with people I disagree with strongly, but I have good relationships and we trust each other and we understand that like we both want to see good things for this country and for the people in it. We just have different ideologies on how we get there. But when you start from that place, you can find ways to work together and move forward. And even when you don't, the animosity isn't as strong. And so I think in order for us to get to a place where we start to experience that as a country, we have to try our hardest to break out of these silos that we're in.
So the question becomes then, how do we reconcile? Right? What I did a short video this afternoon about how disappointed I was in what both President Trump and President Biden said in their final, or I should say Trump's final speech as president and Biden's first speech as president. I was disappointed in both of them. I didn't feel a forgiveness for either side. I didn't feel a recognition of pain or being unheard. Right? I mean, you've done many things, many pieces on MLK. And one of the things he said is, rioting is the voice of the unheard. And I didn't hear Biden say, hey, right wing, I get it. You felt unheard. I get it. You're worried and concerned that we might take over the world. I get it. I hear you. Let's try to work together. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear Trump say, hey, I get it. I was tweeting stuff that made the left feel really scared and unhappy. And I probably was brash and I made a lot of people feel unhappy and alienated. I get it. I'm sorry. Can we move forward? Or not even I'm sorry, because maybe he's not sorry. Just I get it. I hear you. An acknowledgement. I didn't want them to lie. I didn't want them to apologize if they felt like they weren't sorry. All I wanted them to do was acknowledge that the other person exists and that the other person is scared or worried or angry. That's all I wanted. And I didn't get that from Biden. I didn't get that from Trump. And in fact, I got trigger words from both. I got words that triggered that triggered the opposite and virtue signal to their base. And I felt like we're going down exactly the same road, right? Bush got us Obama, Obama got us Trump, Trump got us Biden, Biden gets us another guy from the right, then that guy gets us somebody from the left. Did we just keep going down this road? I didn't feel good. Am I sad for nothing? Tell me, am I wrong here?
No, I don't think you're wrong. And I think, as much as Biden has spoken about unity, you have to do more than say the word unity to achieve it. And I think as a whole, we do have people that have really just reasons for being afraid, for being angry, for taking to the streets in this country. I'm very sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter movement as it pertains to the criminal justice system and policing. I don't share the actual organization's ideology, of course, but a lot of people that were marching in the streets this summer were upset about extrajudicial killings. They were upset about a lack of accountability and transparency in our law enforcement, who are supposed to be there to protect us. But so often we know through things like civil asset forfeiture, through actual police brutality, they are doing quite the opposite, and they are hardly ever held accountable. It's very, very, very rare to see a prosecution of a police officer in this country. And so they had legit reasons to be upset. I think many of the people on the right who are upset right now are really upset about the lockdowns. They're scared about losing their livelihood. They're being pummeled by this economy, by this overreaction by the government, and taking away the right for people to just simply go to work and do their job and provide for their families. They've done that while also not compensating them for that time off. I've been very fortunate to be in all of my jobs that have not had to downsize or where I've been able to work from home. And so I've been quite comfortable during the pandemic, but that is not the case for everybody in America. We've kind of had two experiences during this pandemic, and for people who've lost their livelihoods, who've had their businesses shut down, who are really starting to feel the pinch. I feel for them that it's a scary time, and I understand that anxiety and that anger and that pushback. And so we need a leader who can come together and one, start to take accountability, because these are real government abuses, right? You don't get healing until you first have accountability. And we're sorely lacking that on both sides. And then in order to really get to a place of healing, there has to be reparations. There has to be some way of actually restoring the faith and of ensuring that we're going to move forward in a way that's more true to our Constitution and protecting the rights of all Americans.
You just used another trigger word, reparations. You just made half my audience scream.
I don't mean
it's fine.
I mean in the traditional sense, not the policy sense. But yeah, no, I get it. It's but I also will say
it's trigger word, right? When the left uses a word like reparations, you trigger the right. When the right uses the word, like for example, border control, right? Or voter suppression, right? This triggers the left, right? There are words that trigger each side on what today. Biden used the phrase white supremacy. That's a trigger word for the right. They don't like it. It makes them angry. It makes them upset, right? All these things that we're not paying attention to how people feel. And conflict is emotional. And politics is emotional. And relationships are emotional. And we keep just going, here's the data, here's the data, here's the data. And then we keep fighting. It drives me crazy. So I guess what happened is maybe we're not going to reconcile. Maybe reconciliation has to happen, to your point, at a local level first. Is that where you're going? I mean, if Biden is not savvy enough or not skilled enough or not aware enough, whatever is his reason to reconcile effectively, and if Trump is either, again, not savvy enough or doesn't want to or not willing or whatever is his issue for not wanting to reconcile, does that mean we don't reconcile and we get closer and closer to violence in the streets? My worry is I predicted there'd be sporadic violence, and there has been. This was predictable, right? Are we going to fix this or no?
I think that we can fix it, but I do think we have to start locally. And I think we all need to take a step back from the television and from social media and actually get out in our communities. And again,
not from this show, 7:00, you should not.
Yeah. 7:00, stay home and watch the show. But after that, then go out in your community. Right. Exactly. And get to know people, let them get to know you, get involved locally. I'm somebody who works in politics, but I mostly work at the state level. That's where most things happen. That's where the things that really impact people happen. That's where most of the decisions are made. And fortunately, that's also where people still have the most opportunity to actually impact their government, because you can still get in to meet with your state representative or your state senator. If you're trying to go meet your senator or your congressman in DC, good luck. You're probably not going to get an appointment right away. So you can show up at your state capitol. You can talk to your local city council. There's still a lot that you can do to influence politics there. But I think even more importantly, you know, if we want the country to change, if we want politics to change, politics flows downstream from culture. We've got to fix our culture. I think in a country where we have a representative government, the problem is us. We have to be the light. We have to go out into the world and really start showing up and working to bridge this divide. You know, I try to put myself in spaces where I am meeting people on the left and who have different ideologies than me. It's a little bit harder for me, to be honest, but I try to go into Trump spaces too. I feel myself get a little bit of animosity when I think about that base and about some of the policies they've pushed and what they've done to the GOP. But I try to go into those rooms and have empathy for those people and remember that even people who I think are pushing harmful things, I think as a whole are doing it because of fear, because they are uneducated about the way the system works, because they feel like they had things taken from them themselves and they feel very guarded and territorial and trying to protect what they have. And I think when you view people that way, which Martin Luther King Jr. had his 6 principles of nonviolence. I wrote about them for MLK Day this week. And one of them was to recognize that what we are fighting is injustice, not people. And it's very easy to get sidetracked and to want to fight the people, but to remember that the people, even when they're involved with oppressive states and policies, are also victims of oppression of an oppressive state, right? And to kind of remove that and recognize that we need to befriend them and love them first and try to win them to our cause. And then we gain more allies in the fight against injustice.
Absolutely. It's all about respect, right? I mean, it really is about respect. And with that in mind, about respect, listen to this. Larry Sharpe here, host of the Sharpe Way show, and boy, do we need to start coming together and healing now more than ever. Best way to do that? Respect. We got to respect each other so we can start to come together. How can we facilitate that? Head over to the advocates.org/human respect tests. Yes, there's a test for human respect. You didn't think there was? There is. Take that test. About 3 minutes. That's it. It's done. Share it online. Share it on your social media. Let other people see it. Let them take the test. Share it with others. Let's start talking about respect. Let's start talking about healing. Let's find the right answer for us to move forward. The advocates.org human respect tests. That guy's smart. You should listen to him.
Wow. Yes. He just really saw into the future.
Yeah, he knew exactly what to say. And by the way, those of you who want to, the link is in the show description. Please click on that. Share it with your friends. So, yeah, let me grab a couple more comments if I can. There are a bunch of them here. You have another fan. Jimmy says she's very articulate and yet keeps a basic tone. I like that. You're winning.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Look at you winning. I love it. Absolutely. Companies cannot do whatever they want when they are in bed with the government. Sadly, the reverse is true, Connie. I think the word you meant was should not do whatever they want because they sure can. And this goes what you were talking about, Hannah, about the idea of, governments wind up creating monopolies.
And unfortunately, with corporate welfare, there's usually not any clawbacks in these deals where it says the companies relinquish any kind of rights or have to pay back the money if they act a certain way. There's very few strings usually attached to these deals, so that's not really legally true. But I understand the sentiment of where she's coming from.
Right. If libertarians don't make a move over the next few years, I'll give up on you guys. Don't give up yet, Bryce. There is a massive trust gap that will only widen with a Biden presidency. Sadly, I think you might be. That's what we were talking about, Bryce. I hope you're wrong, but I think you're probably right. If done right, you guys could win so big in 2022 and 2024, it would make the Tea Party wave look like a ripple. I think Bryce has a lot of good points, and I think to be forward, the Libertarian Party last year didn't do as well as it could have done. It didn't take advantage of what it could have taken advantage of. It just didn't. And now we've got to wait till 2022 to see if we can pick up the pieces. And I hope we can. My hope is that those people who aren't heard on the right and those people who on the left who fear that Biden won't be able to help them or do anything right will come to the Libertarian Party. I hope they will. I don't know. What's your view on this, Hannah?
I agree with Bryce. I think there's a huge opportunity. I thought that in 2016. I think we've gone with, in 2016, at least, I thought we went with the wrong candidate for the moment. And then last year, I didn't think that we had the the name recognition we needed in the candidate to really get the attention necessary to stir waves. I'm hopeful about Justin Amash. I'm a huge Amash fan, so I think he's going to do some great outreach over the next couple of years. But here's the truth. There's two things that really have to happen in the liberty movement. One is that we've got to stop the infighting. There is so much infighting. I can't even tell you of all the social media attacks and pushback and hatred that I get probably the most from libertarians who are just ripping people to shreds. No question.
Yes.
And it's exhausting, and it makes people not want to be in the movement, especially pushes women out of the movement. And I think that's something that we've got to really get a hold of. And we need to, if we want unity in the country, we need to get unity within the movement first and foremost. So that's key. And secondarily, people have got to put their money where their mouth is. We're facing really uphill battles here. I think so often people aren't aware of all of the laws, all of the kind of catches that the two parties have put in place to block third parties. We are up against serious money. We're against two entrenched interests. They've passed all of these laws that prevent us from getting in debates, prevent us from getting ballot access, prevent us from getting equal funding. So in order to overcome that, we've got to have people come and do the work. So I think that's another thing. There's a lot of people who want to criticize the liberty movement, but I don't see them at state capitals next to me. I don't see them working to elect candidates. I don't see them raising money. You've got to show up and do the work. We need every single person to do that and to try to grow the movement if we do want to be competitive. Otherwise, it just doesn't matter. Even if people are hungry and looking for another option, ours isn't going to be viable until those two things happen.
So let's do some predicting. Let's use our crystal balls and look into the future and see what we see. And I mean for both Democrat, Republican, and libertarian liberty movements, all three, right? What do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right. So I'm going to tell you what I think happens in the Democratic Party. I think Biden is just happy he's president. I think he just wants to have a legacy. I don't think he'll run more than 4 years. I think after the second year in the presidency, he will begin to pull back and to allow Kamala Harris to spend more time in the front, prepping her for a 2024 presidency run. That's my opinion on that. I think he will focus on two things. First, he'll focus on going out of his way to destroy COVID and then rebuilding the economy. I think that's all he's going to care about. He wants to go back to normalcy. He doesn't want. I don't think he'll do anything bigger than that. I don't think he'll do anything. He'll want to put his name on something like the Biden economy or the Biden vaccine or whatever. He'll want to put his name on something like Obama put his name on Obamacare. And I think that's all he'll do. I don't think he'll do much more at all. He will not make Republicans very angry. They'll just be regular angry. I'm serious. I don't think he's going to go crazy with the social. I don't think so.
I don't either.
Which is going to make the Democratic Party splinter.
Yes. Because
there's a chunk of the Democrats who really want to go all on socialism. There's a big chunk, and that chunk is growing.
Mm-hmm.
That chunk is growing. My feeling is Biden is the last of the milquetoast Democrats.
I think that's right.
I think he's the last of them. He's the oldest and the last. He's the one who's going to hold on to I'm going to hold on to the end. And then once he's done, I think there may be a unless Democratic Party breaks off and the DSA, Democratic Socialists, become a separate part of the party. I think if the DSA or the Democratic side loses big in 2024, they splinter and become a separate party. That's my view on Democrats. Tell me, am I right? Am I wrong, Hannah?
I think you're 100% right. I often tell people, working around Democrats, I have a lot of insight into their thinking, and people have no idea on the right how fractured the left is. They are two different parties that are holding on tight, and they've done a really great job at keeping it together. And I think they really recognized they hated Trump, so that gave them good fodder to really stick it out this election. And I think even the progressives know, like, what we just got is not great. It's not what we wanted, but they were willing to make that compromise to get rid of Trump. That's not going to be true in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. The energy of the party's moving very far left. I agree with you. Biden, milquetoast, 90. He's a 90s Republican practically. He is so moderate. They're going to hate him. I think he's out after 4 years. I think Kamala will definitely be the front runner from that point on. But I think your prediction that party will splinter is spot on.
That's what I think, because again, I live in New York City, so I know lots of Democrats, and I remember, and I tell the story often because I think it really shows the split in the Democratic Party. I have several friends who are hardcore Democrats, like donate thousands of dollars to like Hillary Clinton and stuff like that, right? And I knew a guy who literally had a picture of Hillary Clinton and him on his desk. He wore the "I'm with her" sticker, in 2016. All in Hillary, all in. And he said, and this is before the Democrats picked their candidate, he said, if they pick Bernie, I'm voting Trump. That is how splintered he is. If they pick Bernie, he said, I'm voting Trump. A guy who voted for Hillary in 2016. That's a splintered party. Han, did I lose you? Are you still there? I keep losing you. Let me see if I can pop you back in real fast. All right, let me see if I can pop you back in. Are you there now? I'm not getting you. I think I lost you. No. Are you there now? One more shot. See if I can grab you. Are you there? Can I get you to come back in?
Okay, I think I'm back in.
Oh, there you are. You're back. Now I hear you. Did you hear what I had to say, or did you kind of miss it all?
It's coming through. It's just all jumbled.
All right. Hold on. Let me see if this will help. Hold on. Let me see if this will help. See if hopefully I can get her back in. I apologize, guys. Sometimes we don't get the coolest. We'll see if we can fix it here. How about now?
It still sounds a little jumbled. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly. Okay. I hear you and see you perfectly. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's just coming through like you sound like you're ET.
Ow, I'm in another planet. I apologize. So let me grab a couple of comments. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right. See if we can grab a couple here. Let's see. The American mainstream media is the most evil entity in the world. Ouch. You cannot reason with them. They do not understand logic or rationale, only sensationalism. But Hannah, doesn't this go back to what you said? They're giving us what we want, aren't they?
I think so. At the end of the day, they make a lot of money off of this. If they weren't, they would quit doing it. And so people claim to not like it, and yet that's what they want. They just want it on the left or they want it on the right? They still want it sensationalized. They still want very surface level facts. They're not pushing for hard hitting journalism. They're not pushing for trustworthy sources all the time. Even, I really look at who comes on the news and who's giving opinions. It's who are these people? They're not, right. They're not, legal scholars. They're not people who've worked in government for many, many years. They're people who are making a quick buck off going on TV and telling people what they want to hear largely. So I do continue to blame the consumer for the media. I think that the attacks on it are somewhat justified. I listen to the New York Times every morning. I like their podcast. It's pretty left wing. The data and the research that they present on it is always verifiably true. You can check it and it checks out. But then when their podcast hosts come on and give their interpretation of it or their analysis, I'm often like, wait, that's the wrong take on that, right? Like they were talking about New York City hospitals during COVID and how basically due to government regulations, they were sending people to the overflowing hospitals instead of the ready-made tents that were set up. They were spending millions of dollars on those places sat empty. And their take was that that Governor Cuomo had not done enough, instead of saying maybe government regulations were the problem in the first place and got people killed. And so, you have to be able to listen to the news and be able to pick out what's the research, what's the data, and then what's the opinion? And is that the correct opinion, or is there another opinion on this, right? And to me, I don't think that they are ill-intentioned. I think they are biased and don't always recognize their own bias, as we talked about earlier. But I think we also ourselves have to be able to recognize when we're pushing back because something actually is fake news and demonstrably false versus when we just don't like the narrative. Got it. Okay, so let's go to the next step then. I did Democrats. You do Republicans. What do you think the future? What do you think the future? What's your prediction for the Republican Party? I mean, post-Trump, this kind of situation hasn't happened before, right? The last real icon, I think,
Republican Party was Reagan.
Yep.
And when he left, Bush took over. So there really wasn't a, it was almost like a third term of Reagan in a way, right? In at least ideologically, people felt that. We don't have that with Trump. And the second Bush wasn't as iconic as Reagan or as Trump, right? Yep. Trump and Reagan were both big personalities. So now that Trump leaves, what happens? What do you think happens to the party?
Well, I think it's going to be dependent on two things. One of those being what the Senate does on impeachment. If the Senate votes to convict and Trump is therefore ineligible to run again, I think that really changes things versus if they do not vote. So if let's say if they do not vote, because I'm not convinced they have the votes to do so at this point, I think Trump is talking about splitting off and starting his own party. I think he'll do that. He loves the spotlight. He wants to continue using this base. He's raising a lot of money off this base. He raised, $100 million plus off of his lie about the election being stolen, and he'll continue to take advantage of those people, I think. And so I think if that party splits, what happens with the Republicans could be really interesting. I think you could see a lot of moderates come back. You could see people who are sort of waiting to see if the Trump base leaves maybe start to come back if they feel like it's going to be a party that truly, again, at least says that it represents limited government, individual liberty, and free markets. I also think that could embolden the Libertarian Party. That could really start to help funnel people off over to that party as well. So the GOP, I believe, will also fracture. And listen, I'm excited about these predictions for the Democrat and Republican parties to fracture. That's a long overdue thing in our society. We need more than two parties. These two parties are incredibly corrupt. They largely work hand in hand behind the scenes. I see it all the time at the state and at the federal level. I'd love to see them both broken up and splintered. And I think that we're moving to a point where it's unrealistic to imagine that they won't do that. Trump is a big enough personality and name that I think if he left and started his own party, a good portion of people would follow him. Rand Paul the other week said that if the Senate did vote to convict Trump, that a third of the base would leave the party and being Trump's base. And I said, I think that'd be a great thing. I think that's a good thing. Let them move over to this other party and see if the GOP can return to the roots that it claimed to support. And if not, then I think you've got the Libertarian Party there that could start to pick up some of those pieces.
I think the opposite is true.
You think they stay together?
I think if Trump gets convicted, then the Patriot Party will have virtually no value.
Yes, if he gets convicted, I take all that back.
Yeah. Then the Patriot Party will have virtually no value because he can't run to lead it, right?
Right.
So if that happens, I think that destroys the Patriot Party. I don't think it exists. I think it'll go away.
My predictions were if he were not convicted.
Okay.
Because I don't think they have the votes to.
But this is what I think. If he's serious about the Patriot Party, they'll convict him. Because what Republicans don't want to do is lose 1/3 of their base, right? Because then they'll wind up not winning any more elections. So if they actually feel that he would actually run and take those people, they will convict him to finish him off.
Well, they should believe it because he will.
If they think he's just talking trash to raise money, or he'll do something else, or he'll just, or he'll have a faction of the Republican Party, like the Tea Party, which is really a faction of the Republican Party. If he feels that he'll do that, they'll leave him alone. They're going to be like, oh, he's out. It's fine. Go ahead. Keep people happy, whatever. Right? They're not going to care. What they're going to be worried about is if they think he's going to actually have a separate party that will fight directly against Republicans. If they believe that he's like another Libertarian Party or something, I really believe they will convict him, because what all of the Republicans and Democrats care about more than anything else is their own religion of government. Mm-hmm. They care about that more than anything else. They care about their personal power more than any party, more than anything else. You Absolutely. Heard them today. They called literally the Capitol building a temple. That was their words, not mine. It's a religion for them, and they are all priests of the same religion. They're different factions, like I guess Catholics and Protestants or something, but they're all of the same religion. And Trump's a heretic. And if he just goes away, and it's fine, but if he doesn't, if he tries to stop the temple and the cathedral, I think Republicans will even turn on him. I think the establishment will. But my gut says the party's going to break off into three parts. The traditionals, which is like the Mitt Romneys of the world and those types, right? That's more the neocon style. But I think there's also going to be a Tea Party 2.0. And the Tea Party 2.0 style is going to be more of the liberty wing of the Republican Party. But they're going to be more constitutional conservatives, right? And then there's going to be the populist side, which is the Trump side. Those three parts of the Republican Party. The Democrat Party breaks into two. the Republican Party breaks into three. But the advantage the Republicans have over the Democrats is Republicans aren't in charge, which means they can be united to topple the Democrats the same way the Democrats united to topple the Republicans. So while I think that the Republicans will break up into three, I think they will coalesce right back together because they have a united enemy. That's what I think. They're going to have a united enemy. The Democrats no longer have a united enemy. Right now, they're in charge, which is why they'll fall apart now. So my gut says the Republican Party initially breaks up into three. Trump populists, a Tea Party 2.0, and then the traditional neocon Republicans. And I think as they begin jockeying, one or two people are going to pop to the top, right? I don't know who those people are going to be, right? It'll be like maybe like a, I don't know, Tom Cotton or someone like that. I don't know. But someone like him is going to pop to the top or something. And they'll be like, okay, he's good enough. And he'll be the guy who will rally them against the evil Democrats. I think the Republicans have a better chance of coalescing than the Democrats do because they're out of power. That's my gut.
Well, and here's another thing they have going in their favor, and that's that Democrats are in power now, and it's going to suck. It's going to be terrible. We know what they're going to do. It's going to really anger the American people. I think the party's far left of where the average American is, and so I think they're going to have a lot of people to galvanize and to really kind of rile people up against the Democrats in the next couple of years, and I think that will put them in a better position than they've been in. So I definitely can see your thinking on that.
There we go. So, all right. So what about Libertarian Party? Do I do that or do you do that? Who goes first in that?
You take that one first.
All right.
So I think about it.
Party. I think the Libertarian Party has an amazing opportunity to grow, to grab both from the left and the right. And the reason why they didn't grab from the left is the left, all the protests, all the riots didn't work. There was no real change. And what's happening in the left right now is they're still fighting culture war. They're not actually doing any real changes, right? They're like, we'll change the titles of things, but we won't actually change anything, right? We'll legalize cannabis only if we can make it crony capitalism. So they're doing that type of thing. And there are going to be some people on the left who go, we won and I can't get what I want? Like, what do I got to do to get what I want? What do I have to do to get legalized cannabis? What do I have to do to get legalized, to legalize the cannabis? What do I have to do to make this stuff happen? Change, police reform. What do I have to do? And I'm going to say, you can come here. So I think that's going to get some people from the left. But I think we'll get fewer from the left because they're going to believe because they're in charge, they can make change. Now, the right is going to feel like, well, wait a minute, we lost. I think they're going to be more open to us. Plus, there's something else. The Libertarian Party in any given area tends to be the opposite of the government because we are by default anti-establishment. So New York Libertarian Party tends to lean right because it's a blue state. Oklahoma Libertarian Party tends to lean left. It's a red state. So that's not a 100% rule, but it's a good 70-80% rule. The country tends to be the same way. When Obama was the president, Libertarian Party was leaning right. Trump's the president, Libertarian Party is leaning left. Now I think Biden's the president. I think it's going to start leaning right again. That's my gut. I think more of the right's going to come to us. We're going to start leaning right again. That's what I think the party will do in the coming couple of years. So if that's what happens, we have an opportunity to grow. I hope that we will take advantage and we'll win some local elections. That's what I want us to do. We have to win a couple of local elections. We win some local elections, we'll raise some cash. We got a shot at impact. That's what I think.
I didn't get most of it because it's breaking up again on my end, unfortunately, but hopefully you can hear me okay.
I hear you.
Okay.
So tell me what you think.
So my predictions for the Libertarian Party, I think that the Libertarian Party has a great opportunity right now. I think that, we've really seen the failures of big government, especially in 2020, especially with the COVID response. There's so many things for us to point to and kind of say, we told you so. We predicted this. We've been trying to tell you this for a long time. I think there's amazing inroads to be made on the left where I think you're right that they're going to see the failures of their own party. They already are seeing that. I think they're really hungry for other solutions besides big government. They recognize that big government is often the problem. They just haven't been introduced to.
I think I lost her again, guys. I apologize. When she comes back in, I'll pop in. Let me grab a couple of comments since I'm here, if I could do some of this. I think I have her coming back again. Are you back?
kicked me. I'm back, I think.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So I think that we have amazing inroads to be made. I think we've got some great voices. We've got some people that we need to get behind and champion who can do a great job of working in the media, can do some outreach, who have some name recognition that we need to continue to try to prop up. And I think if we focus locally, there's a lot of gains that could be made with libertarian candidates and local races, state races. And I think that should be the main focus for people. I've not seen as much of a focus on that in recent years that I'd like to see from the party. So I'm hopeful that we'll see some of that. I know we did just see a person in Wyoming that was elected to state house. So that's exciting. And I'd like to see more of that. A lot of these state house races, you can win pretty cheaply. It doesn't take a ton of money or name recognition to get in there. And boy, could we start to make a huge difference if we just got, a handful of libertarians elected across the different states. So I'd like to see that advocacy take place. I think there's tremendous room for growth. I think that, again, we need to have a big tent party. We need to be open to people coming from a left wing side or a right wing side, as long as they agree with us on the principles of, free markets and limited government and individual liberty and not hurting people and not taking their stuff. It's not that hard. And I think that there's a lot of people who are really who have that mindset and have that intentionality. And listen, I think, we need to continue elevating things that people on both sides care about. We have to talk about race. We have to talk about criminal justice reform. We do have to talk about gun control. We need to have answers in various issues. Climate change is a huge thing. It's not my issue, but it's really important to a lot of people, especially younger people. We need to have solutions for that. So we need to be talking about those things. And if we do that, I think it could be a really, big growing time for the movement. But I also think we need to recognize things don't change overnight. There's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of entrenched laws working against us. And so we've got to be pragmatic, and we've got to figure out how to grow smartly. And again, I think the way to do that is to focus locally.
Well, you brought up a very important piece, which is, there are so many laws against us, right? And passing more laws. I feel like, and they're right here, right? This goes back to what Obama said when he yelled, was it Mitch McConnell yelled at? He said elections have consequences, or whoever he yelled at. I forgot what he said that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what people believe. So of course, if I'm on the right, I'm going to, pass laws to get rid of you lefties. And of course, if I'm on the left, I'm going to pass laws to get rid of you righties. I mean, that's what I'm going to do, right? We see already. Trump went out of his way to undo almost everything that Obama did. And now Biden's going out of his way to undo almost everything that Trump did. So now is it chicken and egg, right? Who's fighting? I have to shoot you first, Hannah, because you might shoot me, right? So it's right. It's all, first strike, right? It's always preemptive first strike. And that is my worry what we have. And I really hope that if we can calm it all down, as you said, then maybe we stop with the first strike. I just feel like someone's got to say, let's stop fighting. And that's what I don't hear. Someone's got to say, you know what? This began, heavily in the 60s, where it really began to start to happen a bit, the breaking up, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at it from the presidential side, every president up until second term Obama was always talking about uniter, not divider, uniting one. Even his first term, Obama was like, there's not two Americas, there's one America. They all at least talked the talk. They didn't believe it, but they at least talked the talk. Then Obama's second term, he was like, nope, it's just us. He was like, nope, just Democrats. Forget you Republicans. And then Trump said, hold my beer. Trump was like, I'm worse than you, Obama. I'm taking it totally. And now Biden, while he's not as bad as Trump and Obama, he's still not good. He comes from that Obama time when Obama was like, no, it's just us. So Biden was right there when he said it. So I think Biden's better, I think, when it comes to uniting than both Trump and Obama. But he's not good. He's just less bad.
Yeah, that's right. And somebody's got to wave the white flag, and I think there's a couple things that I would have liked to have seen him do that he has not done. But, I don't know why there haven't been some Republican appointments There have been plenty of Republicans who were never Trump, who even went and worked to help him get elected, which I disagree with. I was against Trump all along, but I certainly didn't go vote for Biden. But that being said, there were Republicans who did that. And so, I think that would be a nice way of really showing that he means to have Republicans in the room. And, even in Congress with the impeachment, we didn't see them put any Republicans on the impeachment committee. Like, what is that about? It's just these small little things that could be done, and yet they're not happening. And that causes me not to have a tremendous amount of faith in the intentionality behind moving forward. Absolutely. And I think that, when you get down to the grassroots level, it's even worse, where I hear a lot of people saying, these people have been behind this administration that we hate and that we think was so terrible for 4 years. Why should we reconcile with them? Why should we have anything to do with them? They should be punished for this. They should be outcast for this. And it just is going to keep scaling up. And I think you're right that if they do that, then in another 4 years, there's going to be a bigger backlash on the right, and it's just going to keep going. Mm-hmm. We're in real need of spiritual giants and leaders in this country, and we're sorely lacking them. We just don't have them at our disposal right now. And I think that's the scariest time. I hear from people who are older than me that the 60s was just as bad as it is right now regarding tension and animosity and racial relations. But if you look at the 60s, you had some great leaders. You had people who were coming forward and who were trying to take the tone of the nation down, who were trying to, bring people together. I'm reading a book right now called 1964 that's about the election of 1964, and it's really examining Kennedy's approach, and I don't agree with Kennedy on everything, but he by all impressions was somebody who was trying to really lead the country in racial reconciliation and repair. And then you of course had Martin Luther King Jr. and so many people that were underneath him in that movement.
After that, you found that well, you may not have liked the presidents after Nixon. They were nice people who were saying nice things, right? Carter wasn't a great president, but Manny was a lovely man and the right guy for that time, right? He was the right guy after Nixon to be can't we just be a nice peanut farmer? Yeah, that was the right guy for that time, right? Okay, yeah, a nice peanut farmer. And then once we kind of got our bearing again, then we got Reagan, who was it's morning in America again. Like, we had the right guys at the right time to kind of get us back on track from that horrible Vietnam, Watergate time. We kind of had that. I'm hoping we find that now. I'm hoping Biden is the Carter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, right? I hope so. And we've got to be rooting for him. Yeah.
Does 4 years, doesn't break anything, says nice stuff, right? And then moves on. I hope he's the Carter. That's kind of what Carter did, right? I don't break anything. Okay, good. All right. Just keep going. And that was about it. So I guess we can hope for that. Let me grab some. Nick's talking about libertarians. He says, libertarians need to extend olive branches. I had originally kind of bashed libertarians, but I stayed cool and was able to talk to him. He was just frustrated because libertarians were mean to him before. Yes. Just
I get that.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. We should stop being so mean. And I agree completely. I'm trying to practice what I preach.
Yep. Right? And it can be hard. I mean, Nick, kudos to you. It's hard when you're being attacked to stay calm and not reciprocate. And I often feel myself just needing to step away from those conversations or social media, because it is difficult to maintain your composure. But I think when you do that, it really does take the sting out of the other person's words and makes them step back. No one wants to feel like they're the bad guy. And so if you respond in kind, I think other people will take the tone down as well. And it's again, what you were saying, Larry, who's going to be the first person to wave the white flag? It's got to be somebody. It's going to have to be us, because I don't see it coming from any other side.
I brought this up on my radio show. The idea, and for those of you who are not religious, please just take this as a philosophical piece. Jesus' concept of turning the other cheek. Mm-hmm. Right? Turning the other cheek. People think that concept is run away and cower. It isn't. It's stand your ground, but don't fight back. That's what it is. It's Gandhi-esque is what that comment is. It is, if he strikes you, you don't go, ooh, and turn the cheek. You just go, all right. But you stand your ground. You don't walk away. He didn't say, if he strikes you, cower in the corner.
Right.
Cheek. Offer him the other. I'm still here. Offer him the other cheek. Right? I'm here. Mm-hmm. And most people, when you smack them, you smack a person once and they don't move, but you give out the cheek, you go, I don't want to hit you now.
Right.
I don't want to hit you now. What? Now I feel like a jerk. Right? You were supposed to punch me back so we could fight, right? If you didn't punch me back, now what do I do? And I think libertarians have to be more that way, right? More that way in dealing with issues and not just striking back and trying to win. I say all the time, Libertarian Party winning arguments and losing elections for 50 years. So
great quote.
Yes, I would rather us not win arguments, not win debates, but instead have conversations. That's the most important piece. Conversations. Yes.
And, Martin Luther King's philosophy was really built on Gandhi and Jesus. He kind of combined these two influences that he had. And one of the most important principles, I think, under his theory of nonviolence was this principle of redemptive suffering or unearned suffering. And how we should be people who do not perpetrate violence, but who are willing to endure it in order to fight for our cause. And that in recognition that unearned suffering will change hearts and minds, and he pointed, the podcaster I was listening to talk about it, pointed to the civil rights movement and talked about the kids who were sitting at the lunch counters. And the images that came out of that were of them being burned and spit on and beaten and kicked in the head by police. And that woke white America up and made them change their views on segregation quite quickly. Whereas had the images been of them burning the lunch counter or hitting back, we would understand it. They had every right to. But at the end of the day, because they incurred that unearned suffering, it was redeemed in getting justice and moving the tide of the nation towards their cause. And I think that's something we have to be constantly thinking of is that there are times where you're going to be unfairly attacked, where you're going to be maligned, where you're maybe even going to be, incur some kind of actual repercussions for your advocacy or for your stances. That could be getting kicked off social media. I've had senators try to get me fired from my job for things I've said on social media.
Sure.
But recognizing that your ability to stand strong in that will, over the course of time, change hearts and minds and be redeemed. And I think that's such a beautiful principle to try to live by. So,
Solar Time says, Larry and Hannah, what do you think about the rumor Trump may start a third party? I do think he's going to, the rumor is he'll start the Patriot Party. I'm not sure he'll do it. What do you think, Hannah?
Well, I think like we discussed earlier, I think it all hangs on conviction. I think if he is not convicted, then I certainly think he will do that and that he will try to run again. If he is convicted, I think that might take the wind out of his sails a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about who inherits the Trump movement. I don't think there's a natural person that inherits that movement. It's not based around. Yeah, it's not based around an ideology, really. It's based around a cult of personality. And I just don't think, as many clinger-ons as he has, there's nobody that really emerges as somebody who can continue it and who can build that base. Similar to Obama, there was really nobody after Obama who could keep the coalition of support around them that he had, because he brought together such an unusual coalition of people who were behind him by nature of his personality.
I think Biden could have then, but he couldn't run because of his son. I think at that time, Biden probably could have done it.
I think he could have kept some of it. I don't think he could have kept all of Obama's base. You have to remember Obama was pulling people who then broke off and went to Bernie, who then broke off, went to Ron Paul, who then broke off and went over to Trump. Had there's these independent kind of voters in the country that really aren't voting based on policy. They're voting based on personality, and they're very fickle. I remember being in a number of Ron Paul groups actually in 2016 and starting to see them move towards Bernie. And I was like, what is happening?
No, this makes total sense. And I brought this up before, right? I look at my voting pattern. Right. I was raised in a Democratic family, but I was in the Marine Corps for my first vote. The Marine Corps is a very conservative. It was a very conservative branch, and all my leadership, almost all of them were conservatives. So the people that I respected all the conservatives. So my first vote, my first commander in chief was Ronald Reagan, and my first vote was for Bush the Elder, Bush 41. Then I saw Bill Clinton, and he was like, doing his cool stuff on the saxophone and all this. Oh, he's a cool guy. He's the rebel, right? He's doing all that cool stuff. So I thought Clinton's gonna save us. He'll do it. He's got all the answers. So then I went right from Bush right to Clinton, and then I was like, oh, he sucks. He sucks. So then I was like, they all suck. So I was Perot. Oh, Perot's gonna fix it. He's got all the answers, and of course he lost. And then I was like, well, I was so unaware of how things worked. I thought that Nader replaced Perot in the third party. I didn't even know Nader was a Green Party guy. I just knew he was the third party guy. So I then went from Perot to Nader, because Nader later. That was the thing we said then. I know it's so dumb now, but I bought it though. I was like, Nader, he's the guy. And after Nader lost twice, I was like, this is stupid. It doesn't even matter anymore. Why am I, And then I heard Obama. Obama, this guy's different. He'll save us. Note the constant thing of me constantly thinking someone's going to save us. I believed that because I always wanted to believe we were savable, that someone could save us. And I always went for, after my first vote, I always went for who I thought was the rebel. I didn't know the policies of them. I just knew they were the rebel. Clinton looked like a rebel. Perot was a rebel. Nader was a rebel. Obama looked like a rebel. He wasn't either. After I voted for Obama in 2008, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to vote ever again. I really was like, I'm done. Then I heard Gary Johnson speak in 2012. I'm like, oh, he's a rebel. He's a real rebel. And then I thought he was the guy. And then I got into the Libertarian Party. I'd never joined the party before. And now I always vote Libertarian because they're always the rebels. So I get the rebel part completely. A guy who was my marketing chief for my Libertarian run of governor, he came from the Bernie campaign. He couldn't have told you what the Bernie policies were. He just knew Bernie was the Democratic rebel. That's why he liked Bernie. About 20% of Bernie's supporters after he lost nomination went to Trump.
Right.
And it wasn't because they knew Trump's policies. He was the rebel. People just wanted the rebel. That's what they wanted. They wanted the rebel. And I get that completely, and not even knowing policies. I mean, if you look at the policies of Bush, Clinton, Perot, Nader, Obama, and Gary Johnson, I bet none of them match at all. But in my head, they were all the rebels.
Yeah, well, I think, the average person does not have time to be super plugged into policy. And it's boring to most people. I like it, but I don't think most people do.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they're busy. If they are interested, they have a lot on their plate, that this isn't their job. And so they have minimal information to go on. And I think that the average American knows the system's broken. I think they know that we're getting screwed. And I think they know that they want somebody to come in and break the system and fix it. They want the rebel because they recognize they need somebody to come in and break it up. The unfortunate thing is that so few of these guys actually are rebels. Most of them have every interest in keeping their power and their power dynamics of their party in place. And so I think the Libertarian Party actually is the real rebel for the most part. I think that's the real actual counterculture movement in our country right now. But again, I've often said, for people who are all into the Libertarian Party, I'd love to see the Libertarian Party succeed and grow, and I hope that it does. But that being said, let's not fool ourselves. If the Libertarian Party ever did become in power, it would become corrupted too, because power corrupts, right? And because once there, once there, people are going to work to stay there and stay in power, and they'll no longer be the rebel party. And so you do always kind of need that rebel coming in, and I understand why people are attracted to that.
Sure. Fish Schmel, I guess that's his name. I think the Libertarian leaders are too weak, and pacifists scoop up all the ex-Republicans and Democrats disenfranchised with the one-party system. That's why the Patriot Party will probably win. I think they thought that for the Tea Party too. The Tea Party had impact, but it didn't win. It just got absorbed into the Republican Party eventually. So I think the difference between the Tea Party and the Libertarian Party is the Libertarian Party is not going to be absorbed. It is a separate entity. I think the odds are high, if Trump does start a Patriot Party, that it will eventually be absorbed just like the Tea Party. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. The point of the Patriot Party is not going to be to win elections. It's going to be for Trump to fundraise off these people. His portion of what the 75 million, 70 million that voted for him, however many it was, I would say probably maybe a fourth of that number are his true base. These people who are just lockstep. They love Trump. They're going to follow him no matter where he goes. The rest of those people just really didn't want the Democrat Party or socialism. And so they held their nose and they went and they voted for the Republican candidate. That's the majority of people who went and voted for Trump this time around. And so I think people who think that Trump's going to have this huge movement, Trump will never be in power again. I'm absolutely confident of that. But I do think he'll continue to be a thorn in the side of people in power and of the parties. And I think he'll raise a lot of money off of this. Yeah,
that's true. El Gregorio says, Larry, I agree with you that Biden will put, I think it's Kamala Harris in front, but he will not do anything. He has always been useless and was elected by idiots, and there's no milquetoast anything. I think he's going to try to put his name on something. Well, I don't know what that is yet, right? Whether it'll be the vaccine or maybe there'll be he'll make like a New Deal plan or something. I think this is his third time running for president. He wanted to run, he won, and I think he wants to put his name on something for his legacy. He'll find some policy that he'll push through in the first 2 years because he's going to be worried that, Democrats lose the House or lose the Senate or whatever in 2022. So I think he'll push something through that'll have his name on it, and he's done.
Larry, I think you're right. People forget this isn't somebody who didn't want the power. This guy's been in DC for decades. He wanted to be president. He is not rolling over for anybody. He's going to be in charge. Do I think Kamala is being propped up to be the front runner in 4 years? Absolutely. Yeah. But is he going to hand over things to her? Get real. This guy wants to be president. He's going to try to lead. I think you're right. He wants to establish his legacy. And I think that I think it will be a very moderate presidency. I think while they do have the majorities in Congress, they have slim majorities, and I think they're very well aware of that. I think most of the people in those offices are well aware of it. They want to keep their seats. They're not going to run to the hard left. I don't find that to be a really predictable conclusion to what this administration is going to look like. Now, I do think we're going to get some really bad policy still, don't get me wrong, but I don't think we're going to see a hard run to the squad's ideas.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's going to make some Democrats unhappy. I think this is the last of the boring Democrats. I do. I think we're going to have a bigger push in 2024, and I hope that we're going to be there for it as libertarians. So let me ask, is there anything I've missed? I've kept you here for over an hour. Thank you so much for all your time. Is there something that I missed that we should have talked about that I missed? And by the way, for those of you who want more on Hannah, please head over to twitter.com. Of course, Hannah Cox 7 to see all the cool things that she's doing. Did I miss anything?
No, it's a very thorough interview. Thank you so much for having me on. Great discussion, Larry.
No, I appreciate it, guys. So much. Thank you all for watching this evening and for your a bazillion comments. I will try to get to some of them more later on today. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate it. And I will see you all tomorrow.